able to get a hold of Galaglash just yet, but I do have some Brutes and Stars here to talk with us. So on the Brutes end, we've got myself, obviously, and then we have Grumf and Auorodict. Over on the Stars end, we've got Bodrum and Kiid. Um, Kiid wasn't in the match, so this must have been a bit of a painful watch for you.
I was kind of playing legs with my kid a little bit while watching. Well, it wasn't that painful.
Let me take care of that. Okay, so Bodrum, what
Yes.
just happened here?
I mean, I think you know what happened, and I think we know what happened. We were expecting this for a while, not necessarily the loss, but this fight playing out the way it kind of did. We actually, up until this point, had not actually fought Grumf and Duxitum in the same match, and I think we were intending that was going to be remarkably hard. But obviously, since we had never actually did it, we were just waiting, and there it was. Our lineup we actually played this week was not one we were actually originally intending to play for tonight, but for whatever reason, the other lineup we had planned that we had not used before, we were not able to pull off. And obviously, we didn't use Kiid, and we probably should have, which is what everyone is telling us, and him as well.
I think that was the expectation. To be honest, I'm not sure how much it would have helped you. You would have had. I feel like it would have played out very similarly, if not even worse. To be honest with
Yeah,
you.
because that's a lot of damage that Kid can't mitigate either.
Exactly.
Either way.
If you have Kiid in there, then Azula at least can heal herself. But if you have Kiid in there, there's no healing on him at least. The mages can still heal each other, but he can't drop kick both Kimpaz and Grump, and that's just a lot of damage he can't handle. Especially because then Auorodict and Branzel, for that lineup, they have freedom to go stance offensive. You're not protected against both of them, because obviously you're protected against Grump or Zudum. I don't know that there's necessarily a sub you can do with that lineup that fixes that problem.
I'm not going to disagree. I also think a one sub is probably not going to do it. That there's some disagreement, obviously, since we just lost. We're kind of going back and forth on what we think the best lineup would be. So technically, me, Kiid, and Kimpaz are all in different lineups, which we're not going to say out loud, but we are all on one different idea, and we're going to see if we can come up with the all of us agreeing before the next match.
Yeah.
This is Auorodict here, by the way. I have to say though, one thing about this match, Grush kind of touched on it already, but that's like the first match. I think that's the first match in my ACFL history that I could actually sit in stance offensive the whole match. And like I didn't even get to swap into my damage gear because I was afraid that I was gonna die and I wanted to be in full mana still. But like that was still, I don't know, that was a switch for me. I'm used to being kind of a damage soak, and I do have to say, if Kiid was in there, I would have been probably back to that, more of a damage soak and defensive. So it's hard to say how that would have played out for sure.
I think I would actually say, just because of the trouble Leighton had in that match, specifically with being targeted so heavily, and Branzel was amazing on the chase, which was painful as hell. I was scared to death a couple times when he was chasing me. Actually, in the first matchup, before the before the reset because of the memory leak, you guys killed me with way too much mana left just because Branzel was chasing so well, which was quite frustrating.
Oh yeah, he was chasing really well, and then we got that Shield Strike Roundhouse combo on you, and that was it.
Right. So I think we all kind of agree that if Kiid was in there, we would have done better. I agree in the sense that I don't know if that would have made us win, but it would have, at the very least, he would force you guys to be defensive against a hitter. He can at least skill blind, so we could run around a little bit more like we already were. And in general, he can hide. You guys can't see him. A whole bunch of good things that would have been really awesome. The Kiid was talking about that he's entirely right about. So we think that we should have used him. Again, I agree in the sense I don't think it would have made a win because I think I have no response to a Meteor Cone combination. But one day.
It's scary. I do think on the topic of the reset, obviously it didn't change a whole lot, and I didn't expect it to change a whole lot. Just because the composition that you guys used, I don't know that like your strategy is pretty much dictated by that composition. Would you agree with that? Like, there's not a whole lot of flexibility inside that composition for you to like adapt on the fly.
As far as your composition or our composition?
Your composition. I don't believe you had like with the reset.
Right.
I don't think there's like much opportunity for you to go, oh well, that wasn't working before. Let's try this instead.
Right. I mean, after the reset, I think before the reset, we realized very quickly what a problem this was going to be, and then we couldn't change the roster after the reset, which would have been awesome. But yeah, I mean, our lineup, and again, it's why we weren't technically going for this lineup ahead of time, but we had some attendance stuff that caused trouble too. It's a purely offensive lineup. Leighton, the two mages, Azula. Azula is a healer, but as a druid, she still does a lot of damage, so it's purely offensive. Our only strategy is going all out, kicking ass. And we couldn't do that because we couldn't all stay in the same room together. So
that's funny. That's funny. You look at that as an all-out offensive lineup, and at least from my perspective, I saw that as a 4-healer lineup. Mm-hmm. And I mean that to me was a scary part.
And that's an understandable point, but we don't have a lot of rescues other than Charmies. And the problem is, if we're just healing each other because we're all mages, all we can do is heal. We can't find a way to whittle you down or rescue while we're healing with this specific 4 people.
Yeah,
so that's the big issue. We didn't really
that's
have
true,
a way
and that's
of
what we
just
saw
taking
happen.
advantage of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then
I agree. We could have healed, but all that would have done was stalled it for like 10 more minutes.
I wasn't seeing our team doing enough damage to kill everybody with ER and all the healing you guys had.
ER, Song of Heal, Lay, which Branzel laid Kimpaz at, or not Kimpaz, sorry. I always freaking say their names backwards, just like because. But anyway, Branzel laid Zudum at 2,000 HP. I just I don't know. He Zudum had the flag. Leighton went over there or maybe not even Leighton. No, I think Bodrum was over there, kind of trying to harass him, and Branzel was like, "Oh crap! Protect Zudum, Lay at 2,000 HP." And then later, Leighton respawned and then started dropping the disjunctions, and it's like, well, sure would be nice to have Lay.
Oh, that was hard at times to stay on Leighton. As much as you guys obviously sort of give praise to Branzel's amazing chasing, which it was, especially once Leighton got kind of low, it was really hard to stay on him. And once I was low, I was really quite scared. And I was pretty fortunate that people started wimping me from me near the end of that match because, I was about to go down. I guess by then maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but I don't know. I took it.
We were all dead at the end.
I may have just lost some gear.
Oh, did you have that out still?
Maybe.
Sorry, I should have mentioned there was a copy over going on.
Maybe. I hope somebody picked it up. We'll see. But anyway, sorry, that was unrelated.
Well, I would like to respond to it real quick because I think it's interesting that Kiid mentioned we weren't doing enough damage, and I agree 100%. We were just too much on the run. This is probably the first time we fought a team that had so much damage output that, like, all of us died with mana. When Kimpaz may be the only one not dying without mana because he was actually hard to kill because of your lineup. Mm-hmm. But when I died, it was with mana. When Leighton died, it was with mana. I'm pretty sure Zula usually died with mana, and that's not normal for us. We're usually able to control our deaths pretty well. But we were always split up because if we were ever in the same room, we were just getting hit too hard, and at the same time we were being chased if we're split up. So it was really tough. I really don't know what else to say. The interesting thing we did figure out, just for everyone else out there hoping to try and find a way to beat Grumf, is that he cannot hit through anti-magic shell with Meteor. So that was really nice, and that made it so the only person on our team who could stay alive is Kimpaz. But at the same time, he got holy smited at least once. And obviously on his own, he can't do anything. So he was just
pretty fortunate that landed in both the first round and then after the reset too.
It is the Holy Smite is a 75% success. So it would be it is expected to land, but we did kind of get fortunate, like you said, that it didn't crap out on the rematch. But on the Stars end, you guys did actually make 1 or 2 adjustments that I thought was slightly concerning at first. I didn't think it would make the difference, and it didn't. But you guys did adapt well, and that I think on the first go out, you guys were protected evil against Zudum. Is that correct?
I sure was. I don't know about the other guys.
And then on the rematch, it looked like you all came out protected neutral.
Yep.
Yeah, you looked to that and you said, no more.
Somebody
Did
else
you guys
said
not
no.
discuss your alignment protections? That's interesting that you have no idea
No,
what
no.
everyone else protected.
We do. I just we discuss it ahead of time, but we don't necessarily all say which one we went because I tend to
Okay,
go
fair
slightly different. I tend to aim protection evil because I tend to chain myself a lot. So every now and then we differ on what we drop on.
Gotcha.
I think most of them. I assume most of them were also neutral at the beginning, but none of us had actually fought. There's never been a Brutes match where we've fought Grumf yet. This is the first time we've seen Meteo. So in a way, maybe they all stuck with evil too.
And then the other adjustment it looked like you made, and I don't know if this was necessarily intentional on your part. I assume it was, but it could have been an accident as well. Is it looked like at the start of the rematch, you guys said, "Oh crap, that's way too much AOE damage," and it looked like you kind of spread yourselves out a little bit more.
Yeah, it was intentional. I don't know if it worked any better. I felt like we almost did a little bit better the first match, but yeah, we were just like, let's just split up. Maybe we'll come back together and prayers down or something, but that didn't work either. So
yeah,
I have to say, in hindsight, I think the biggest thing there between the first and the second is that in the first match, we may have been at risk of killing you guys too quickly and letting you come back with too many full to give you the opportunity to 3-cap us.
Well, the thing about the killing them too quickly in that situation is because I think most of our guys are healthy. They all have ER. In that particular situation where we killed them so quickly, none of us really spent a whole lot of our, your mana pool or your health that had to be burned. So I feel like, if you had
That's
just
true.
killed them all, it wouldn't have been an issue because by the time they're come back up, you're fully
We hadn't
restored
taken all
almost.
that much damage to
Yeah.
begin with, right? Yeah, okay, makes sense.
hmm
So I think that's I don't think that would have been an issue. And
I agree. I think that if we all just died at the beginning and came back, I don't know if they would have been hurt enough for it to matter. We did some fairly good damage, but we either targeted Duxitum while he was getting disjunctioned, or we targeted someone else, and it wouldn't have done all that much damage. I think the big problem is if we all die at once, especially. Like normally, that's an advantage for the people who are dying. So if you killed all 4 of us at the same time, that would have kind of been okay. But the problem is, if we all die at the same time, Grumf will have prayer up again by the time we get back.
Okay.
Because we need someone to keep him from getting prayer back up. I mean, that might have been a huge deal because maybe his mana would have been slightly low, but you don't want a priest to get prayer back. So.
No, that's a really good point too. Even giving him just the 5 ticks of regen would be pretty big.
Yeah.
So I mean, you guys don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but were you expecting Brute 2.0?
No.
No.
I mean, Kiid, did you think Grushg was going to play himself?
No, I didn't think he was going to play himself.
No,
I was pretty sure it was going to be this team that they were going to send out.
No faith in the Brute.
Nah.
No, faith. Jeez. Well, we didn't have faith in the Brood either, to be honest. Like, I can't tell you how many of our games start with, Grush, please, no, not this lineup. And then afterwards, it's more like, oh my god, Grush, I don't understand. You were so right. I'm so sorry. Like, I can't even tell you how many times that has happened.
It's literally like every single match, even going back into last season and further back. Like, it's every single one. It's like, and it's always Branzel that starts it too. He's like, no, Grush, don't. And we had a lot of that.
Grush,
at
give
this one.
Gurfing an invite.
We had we had Branzel is like no, and then everybody else, Zudum, Xantel, even Aro a little bit jumped on it. It's like I don't know. I think we should do this other one.
Right at the very end, I do admit that I got worried about trying to melee Kimpaz down with just me and Branzel. So, I mean, between the two of us, we have like 2.5 wielding, right? Like,
right.
So like that was a little bit worrisome, but the way it played out certainly worked well. It really did. But even that though, I have to say, like, we were getting quite low trying to burn down Kimpaz, and if other things had not gone so perfectly, I mean, that's what was playing through my head, is that it would have been tough.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think we're struggling with on picking our lineups too, because against your team, Kimpaz is a lot less useful than he normally is in a sense because he's generally a very offensive juggernaut and a defensive juggernaut. Because it's Invoker versus Invoker, you get this weird thing where he's less useful offensively but more useful defensively. So Kimpaz was especially hard to kill this match, but it was also not all that useful this match damage-wise like he usually is. It's weirdly annoying when you have two Invokers because it all depends on how the rest of the team is basically doing because whichever one gets 4v1 is the one that ends up losing.
That's about it, yeah.
And sorry, I'm getting distracted by the game. But no, I do agree with that. Like it puts Kimpaz in like a semi-defensive position. But then you do also have the kind of awkward situation that I know Zudum is a little bit afraid of, where you get the two AMS guys sitting on each other. One of them doesn't have horns anymore.
And one of them theoretically had a teammate that would come in disjunction, but
Yeah.
that only happened the one time, which was pretty nice.
Or a teammate could have came in and rescued and blinded.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I pronounce it Duxitum, by the way, but when in the first match that we had in week 1, he was probably furious about that because there was the one time he took the flag at the end, and then he theoretically could have kept us off him, but he got disjunction and stuck, and there was no one to rescue him, so it could be a little tough.
So another thing is that
disjunction, but
yeah.
that only happened.
I have no idea where I was going with this. I just kind of totally lost track of my.
Fine. I have a question.
Okay.
So you guys saying you were talking about other lineups? I'm actually because this is the lineup we were waiting for since after week 1 because we didn't know about Grumf being a ridiculous psychopath in week 1, but after week 1 we were like, well, now we're just waiting for the Branzel, Duxitum, Grumf team. We also expected Auro would be the 4th one, so that wasn't entirely surprising. We knew you had some other options as far as like Xantlin or something who could save, but Auro was the guy we were mostly expecting. We weren't necessarily worried about the others as much. So I'm curious what other lineups you guys were thinking, because we were like, if we see Grushg, that's just a hubris problem, and that's awesome. But I'm curious what you guys were thinking of playing out.
Okay. So some of this, I don't. This falls into a situation where I don't know how much I should say necessarily. But
don't let him bait you into too much.
No.
He knows what he's doing.
Here's the thing. When it comes to ACFL lineups, there's like that weird kind of do you know that I know that you know that I know kind of game that comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know, at least based on my experience, what I think would be the ideal composition for an enemy team to play. And I usually try and base my team composition against what I think that ideal would be. But then I also a lot of times have to kind of like pull myself back and go, okay, that's what I would do if I were them. Now what would they do? Because that's not always the same. As far as the lineup tonight, that was a situation, we kind of fell into that situation where I think the lineup you used was a poor one in this situation because, you saw what happened. I knew what our response to that would be. I knew how the match would play out. And I didn't think, there were other lineups we could use and other lineups that I planned for as alternatives. But it comes down to, those other lineups that could win or one that is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just, like I said, it's a bit of an awkward kind of juggling match with what I think the enemy team should be running, what I think they actually will run, what they think I'm going to run, and what they're gonna how they're gonna react to that. It's. And
what did you think we were gonna run?
Well,
that's a trick question there because you just said that you plan on them picking the composition that you think they have as best to beat us. So I don't know.
You guys are-
Just remember, they were being pretty coy about what alternate lineups they wanted to run tonight, but didn't have the membership for. So just be careful here. That's all I'm saying.
See, I was trying
Yeah,
to
this
rein me in.
is one of those things where we don't want to give each other too much away, but we always want to know what the other guy's thinking.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
They-
cool. It's cool
have
just for the
to
community
leave.
itself. It is neat to have the input
Especially
from everyone
Con.
too.
I mean, I actually am not a huge fan of the whole secrecy thing. I would love to just tell you the composition I wanted to play and the new compositions we're thinking of now, but my teammates tell me I shouldn't do that. So.
Yeah. See, I mean, a lot of a lot of the broadcasting that I do is already just putting a lot of information out there, right? And I'm in that same position where, like, I'd rather us all just be like, hey, like, this is what we were doing and everything. Let me think about how I can.
I think for me and you, we don't think it matters a whole lot. Like, I really don't. Like, if you were to tell me what composition you think would be best for us or what composition you think would be best for you, I don't know if I would necessarily consider me knowing any more than I did before. I feel like maybe some of us veterans are like, you know, we pretty much know who you're going to play and we kind of know who's a favored matchup. Like, at least me, I think. I mean, I think Kiid, obviously, but I think there are at least some of us that were like, we knew that we were not favored in this matchup. So I don't think there was a whole lot of like, you know, oh, if only we knew a better lineup problem, you know? So that's why I don't care. I'm like, I just feel like I just tell you guys everything, but I don't want my team being mad at me either. So.
And this may be a bit of ego coming through. I think, at least in this situation, I think I do kind of have a leg up on people in terms of a lot of ACFL related strategy. And again, you know, that is some hubris, but
Oh, sure. Take it, run with it.
but I mean, you guys saw the initial lineup that we threw out there, right?
Did you change it for the
Yes, we did.
home field? I actually no, I didn't see the original. What was the original?
So the original lineup that we threw out there, because you know you have to throw up your lineup, it gets put on the board, and then.
Well, that's an interesting point, though. I think this season they have not actually been showing the initial lineup. I'm trying to remember if I've actually seen it up there yet.
I actually agree to that. I've been noticing that I have never been able to see two lineups. I mean, it doesn't matter. Even if we saw it, we can't do anything about it. But they haven't actually been showing the original ones.
I think it's happened sometimes, and I think you're right that in other matches it has not been up there. I think it's technically supposed to be up there. I think it's it's supposed to be information that the other team gets access to. I
Right.
could be wrong on that, but I mean that's how it's been in the previous seasons, at least.
Right.
At least it's not a big
Yeah.
like
So-
Bodrum said. It's not a big effect on the game or something.
They
but
should be
it's-
doing that. It is good info, but I don't think it's going to tell us too much
Alright,
we didn't
so
know. But again, I am curious.
I'll tell you, the lineup we threw up there was to take advantage of the fact that we have home field, which was Auorodict, Branzel, Grushg, and Zudum. That was the initial lineup that we threw up there, with the understanding that we had home field advantage, and it's based on that. So I was prepared to go in against you guys,
Instead of Grumf.
possibly.
I mean, that was the original lineup, right? It was no Grumf with you.
Oh yes, correct.
Yeah. Yeah,
and then there were multiple substitutions that I was prepared to make based on you guys' lineup. And I outlined all of those with my team in the minutes leading up to the match. I said this is what I expect them to face or to put up, which was your default lineup, which is the Bodrum, Kempaz, Azula, Kiid. I expected that lineup. I considered the Tri-Mage setup to be a close second. I thought you guys, because
Wait, I don't mean to stop you. Can you go back a second? I got distracted by Endgame. I didn't hear what you said about what you thought our first lineup was going to be.
my prediction for your first lineup, and again, this goes into like the kind of head games thing, where this is what I thought your best lineup should be. Not necessarily the lineup you were going to use, but the one I needed to be prepared for as the most potentially dangerous, not counting like being blindsided by some weird strategy. which was your default lineup, and that's Bodrum, Kempaz, Azula, Kiid.
Right.
That's you guys' default. That's your main lineup. Everything that you do outside of that is a flex pick, right?
Right. Agreed.
Okay, so that was the main lineup that I was prepared for, and the lineup that I sent out is one that I thought could handle that lineup, but also offered an extreme amount of flexibility using the home field advantage to adapt to whatever you guys could throw at us through substituting multiple different players based on what you guys could throw at us. So while I anticipated or at least I thought the best idea for you guys would be that default lineup, I was anticipating the Tri-Mage setup with either Kiid or Azula. So we had a plan for that, which you saw.
Yeah.
It was a very subdued yeah. So I had the plan for that. I had some other plans as well, depending on other possibilities you had. But I expected you were either going to do the default lineup or the Tri-Mage. And this is something I talked to. I think I was talking to Rekla about during the cast, which is that I think you guys have historically put in, at least shown on the forums, and again, this is a situation where you don't know how much what somebody says on the forums is what they actually think, and how much is just what they kind of are like bluster, how much of it is just bluster. But you guys, Kempaz especially, has put a lot of stock in Zudum being like the linchpin of Roots.
I mean, basically, yes. I mean, you'll remember we weren't in the playoffs against you last. My memory's a little phasey because it was 2 years ago, but from what we were talking about tonight, we didn't play you guys in the playoffs last year or last season.
No, you got beaten by Quicksilver there.
Right. Let's just forget about that. But before that, during the regular season, we had a hell of a time beating Duxatum, and it was that's still our understanding now. Like, even with Grumf being as ridiculous as he is now, I still think he's your linchpin, at least against us. And which, again, I'm giving way too much, but Fleck's going to kill me at some point.
Which is interesting because I would have considered. I mean, don't get me wrong. Zudum is obviously a key player, especially last season. I do think he had a big impact, but I don't think he was as instrumental in how things played out as Kempaz at least has portrayed. I think last season we had Bayless as well, and that was a huge factor.
I think a really good leader on the field, and just getting up to the matches too.
Absolutely. I mean, what I would say though is I feel like Branzel's doing a really good job as replacing the Bayless role, at least as the group leader. Maybe not necessarily. I mean, I don't know what's going on inside your team, but he seems to be doing great for his role. From what I'm seeing, I don't know who your shot callers are or anything like that.
As far as shot callers go, it's me, and then I still talk to Bayless. I talk to Auorodict and primarily. But for the most part, most of the strategy and decision making comes from me. I bounce ideas off of a couple of other people, but generally just to work out the kinks in the strategy I've already decided on. I don't usually end up deviating from that too much. And again, this is like a little egotistical maybe to say, but I feel like I generally come up with the right strategy, and it just needs a little bit of tweaking. And I like to go over things to make sure I'm not missing something.
Sure.
Also, the other half of the shot calling there, as far as the on the field shot calling goes, actually I have to say that's a really nice thing when Grushg is in there, because he is very vocal and it does keep us quite focused. But beyond that, and what we do seem to have some success with anyway, is almost shot calling by consensus. It's just whatever the situation is, or at least like the core that's in there has played so many games now that the situation pretty much calls itself. And it's just like, who's going to recognize that first and just make sure it happens is really what it comes down to. So we don't have one individual that we kind of listen to exclusively within the match.
Yeah, and I think that's something we've always
I've-
noticed about your team a little bit more. I'm sorry, I think I interrupted somebody.
Yeah, I was about to say, I usually just do whatever I want to do, and every now and then, if I see a tell or a note or something I agree with, I'll do it. But if I don't agree with it,
Kiid is
I'll
a
just be
very
like, "Oh,"
special case.
I'll just be
Well,
like,
I
I'll
think
pretend I
Kiid
didn't
and
do that.
Xanton fill the same role that way, though, too. I think
Yeah.
that might even be not so much a product of the person as the class and the role being played.
Right, like Kiid contributes to strategy all the time, but we never tell him what to do. We're like, whatever, just go out.
Go out. Do
Every
your
now and then
thing.
we're like,
you know,
maybe
you
kill
know your
somebody.
job. And I think I do agree with Auorodict. To some degree that comes down to the class. It's very much a class that you kind of just have to like sit around the outskirt of the fight and just look for openings, and try and get like just go for the opening, not necessarily stick with a single plan throughout the match. Like I think I've experienced a little bit of the same thing in the recent match, Brutes versus Sharks, where I have a plan to choke certain people, but you still kind of stay on the outskirt of the fight and just look for somebody to choke. Like it doesn't matter who, you just look for somebody that you can jump on and become effective against. Do you feel
I
like
think I
that's
usually start off an awful lot of the fight, button mashing, hoping to catch the one person I was supposed to at the beginning, and then just try to roll with it from there.
Yeah, adaptability is key for sure.
The communication in the middle of the fight, it always seems to me that we start off with our strategy as we have a first cap and second cap, and usually the first cap ends up happening, and then something about half the time will break down in the middle, and we'll have to delegate it out to somebody else. And that seems to be something that's happened a number of times during our matches.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially tough for teams with invokers on them because usually someone gets chained at some point and the group's broken. Makes communication a little bit harder. So that's when it's good that you guys all know each other well enough to maybe even know what they'll do without having to tell them. So
especially I think
Yeah, like
it was maybe not an issue as much this particular match because Ardic kind of had his hands full trying to dirt kick Leighton, but a lot of times against Bruce, you have to deal with the Deafens as well, and then if you talk about group breaking, and then like it's really chaos.
yeah, I mean, like I remember season 1. I don't remember if there was an aerial or whoever was sound. I guess there was an aerial in season 1 still, right? If you're new, it's just impossible. You're just, you lose. You just start running around with not knowing what you're doing. Especially if you're blind, you don't know the. I mean, the arena layout's basic, but sometimes you're just not. It's not muscle memory. So.
Let me go take a look. I'm not sure if there were aerials in season 1, but I know there was. I think there was a shaman, maybe on somebody's team, and the thunderclap was pretty obnoxious for a little while.
Now, I don't mean to interrupt with something, but Artheus was mentioning maybe Pukji wanted to get on. I don't know if he was having a hard time getting onto the stream.
Yeah, I talked to him. I was trying to get Galaglass on, to talk to them first after that win because I was actually very impressed with their performance.
They executed very well, actually. Yeah, that was a really good game for them.
Executed amazingly well tonight.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to get a hold of anybody, and then I brought you guys on, and I think at the maximum that Skype is going to let me do without upgrading.
That shouldn't be true anymore, by the way. I think you can host quite a few people now.
Maybe I tried earlier, not earlier, like the last week or whatever, and it wasn't letting us. So maybe I was just doing something wrong though.
Well, before I get off, I want to complain about Duxton and finish what I was saying before about why he's overpowered. But I just, in case I'm not on later, I just want to say that the fact that Galaglass won tonight seems to be a huge. We thought it was a huge deal. It was the one thing that cheered us up after the match because Hydra lost. So.
I've been in Ferg's corner for a long time. He's been doing good.
Yeah.
Nice.
I didn't know how well he was going to perform based on the draft because it'd been 2 years basically since I played DSL, and then so I saw a whole bunch of new names, people I didn't know. Like I didn't know anything, like players or anything. So it was just like a blank slate to me. But he's done very well throughout the course of the season so far. And Arthes has human armsman kingdomer, but at the same time he's been doing a very good job keeping people choked.
I actually he was over at my apartment just 2 hours before the match. He was like, I'm going to go home. I guess I might fight. And then I see him win the next second. I was like, all right.
Yo, you.
That's pretty cool. That's cool.
Yeah, he did a very good job, I think.
I think his progress has come a really long way too. Since, I mean, I'm trying to think. It's not that I've been the most diligent DSL player for the last little while, but I want to say I remember him sort of like almost going out of his way to start going in bloodbaths and things like that. Whatever my impression is, though, is that he's made like major leaps and strides in his actual PK play. I've been pretty impressed.
Hey, free eggs are free eggs, man.
That's right.
It's true.
Grumf is in that kind of position too. I remember talking to him at the end of season 3 and asking him to go try and get some planning experience. Do BBs, whatever. He was already doing BBs, I think. But try and get some more planning experience. Do whatever he can to get more seasoned and comfortable. And I think it's paid off for sure. Like, do you feel a lot more comfortable, Grump?
Yeah. I mean, I still get the jitters pretty bad when I try to PK. I'm so fat fingered about typing my commands. That's probably my biggest enemy. And I'm not real savvy on setting up tick triggers and all those sorts of things. So, there's kind of a curve for me. I kind of play on I like to think of it as hard mode because I don't rely on it. But
damn, you have no tick timer even now.
I'm very unreliant on triggers and things like that too. Like even like the simplest things. There was before the Boots Sharks match. Branzo was like, I need you need to set up a trigger to tell us when you choke somebody, and I was like, no, I don't need a trigger. It's like, you need a trigger. You need a trigger. It's like, all right, fine. So I set up this trigger, and it gets when I choke somebody, it goes, hey, this person's choked! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Whatever. And then during the match, like I choke people, and then the first thing I do is hit tilde to stop all the spamming. That wipes out the trigger, and then I just like type in, hey, this guy's down, and then I go about my business and I choke the next person like before it would even fire.
I just made an alias to make sure I say when I chain lightning specifically for Kiid.
Yeah,
because he complained a lot.
I could have used one of those tonight. I think I broke group at least twice anyway.
I was like, send a group tell before you start chaining.
Yeah.
Like an alias that says something before the fact.
And I didn't chain anyone else today, so I feel like it was helping somewhat.
That's something.
Yeah, when I'm playing my choker classes, that's what I do too. I have it shoot the tell before I attempt the choke.
Yeah, before is a lot better than after, isn't it? Because you got that 2-round delay that a lot of things can happen, and with the choke specifically, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But I just let my team know, hey, I'm spamming for this person, and then I spam for a little while, and then I go, hey, if I'm still checking on that person, then it's been like 30 seconds, whatever. I'll repeat, hey, I'm spamming for this person. Or if I change targets, I'll let them know. If you have it going before each choke, I think it slows down your reaction time, quote unquote, and it means you would miss some chokes that you otherwise might hit.
Yeah, I think with choke that's especially problematic. Like chain's not so bad because the chain's pretty much gonna happen anyways. But choke, if you enter combats, that sort of thing, I could see why it'd be. I don't know how you would do it with choke. Like before sounds good, but that one command does have a tiny bit of, I don't know if it's intentional game lag or game lag with it, so it's not something you could just throw out there with choke. Mm-hmm. All right, so I have to go to bed soon, which means I want to go off my Invoker soapbox.
Okay.
Can I get like a minute just for the soapbox?
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
Starting now.
At the very least, why I think I'm sure each people on my team is very independent. Each of us disagree with each other all the time, so stars are all over the place. The reason I think Dixotum just is the cornerstone of the team probably has to do with there's a bit of a perspective problem because I can't hurt him. But I think that's the problem. Like we have a core. You guys know we have a core, and if you look at our main lineup of Kiid, Azula, Kimpaz, Bodrum, of course you have just with AMS alone, we can't touch him. Mm-hmm. Most of us. Azula can do a little bit of melee. Kiid obviously can do very well, but even, I mean, he thinks he can do amazingly. I still think that, when you got a steeled, con-carded Invoker, and I say that, purely respectfully, I, of course, am abusing the same system.
Yeah.
Hey,
It's
I
tough.
beat one of those in AGL before.
That's true.
So did I, actually. So did I.
But, now you got 3 other guys guarding him that necessarily we can't kill that quickly. So the
Yeah,
problem
man,
is
I
that
got
it's
3 guys
basically...
to hide behind too.
Yeah. But the problem is it's Duxitum with tanky people around him. Like, he's not surrounded by, I mean, let's say they were swashbucklers. It's Branzel, who takes forever to kill. Grumf doesn't take that long to kill, but at the same time, he's kind of a bad target because, he'll just run, maybe come back later.
Grumf's AC is pretty ridiculous, and he's every bit as skinned out as...
His AC is good, but he's still cloth, so you could really tell the difference
that's-
between him and
that's
Branzel.
True. It's 100 AC difference. And the runes do make up for that and all that, but still,
Right.
You're right.
I mean, I don't know. I feel a huge difference between the two. I don't know if they're protecting differently or what, but I mean,
He definitely has the advantage on me when it comes to the simple damage reduction from just the material types.
right.
So
I mean, especially,
yeah.
I think it's actually, isn't it? I thought it was like a 25. No, you're right. That's 100 AC. Good call.
It's slightly
25 times
slightly
4, yeah.
over 100. It's like 108 or something. I think 112 maybe for the Arcanium plate. But
And am I losing my mind? Is Branzel the paladin that has the anti-acid blast skins, or is that the other guy?
You mean the black skins or copper, whatever?
I actually
I'm
don't
pretty
remember
sure
which ones
Branzel has every flavor of skin imaginable. He just
Anyway,
swaps them
I know
out at
some
will.
paladin.
I'm pretty
had
sure you actually got
anti-acid
those
blast skins.
IC as well. I think you got those.
cornucopia of colors.
All right. Anyways, let me finish the soapbox now. There is an inherent problem with... I mean, I'm not saying it's like a overall game balance problem, but it's a problem for me. The whole anti-magic shell necromancer versus invoker thing. It's not one of these things where it's like, okay, well, we can mitigate necromancers by having an invoker. It's like, well, no, we can put in a character who's completely invincible versus this other character.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm not faulting him on or necessarily the class on. The two
You're saying
characters
it's a
I played the
composition
most.
issue.
Yeah. The two characters I played the most are an invoker and a necromancer. So I love them both. And I've been on both sides of an awesome one-on-one invoker versus necromancer fight. I remember fighting Aurigar with my invoker, and obviously I fought Duxitum with, and also the, oh shoot, name's falling. I had 2 title defenses with an invoker as Bodrum. So I love the fight. It's a great one-on-one fight, but in the one-on-one, it's always this fun game of can the necromancer outlast the invoker's mana? And that's not a thing in ACFL. ACFL is like, well, no, this is a slugfest. We're not going to have an hour to go around and wimpy flee and stuff like that. So there's no longer that balance between me and Duxistem. We're both AGL champions. We're both stronger than we should be. We have that same problem. We're both broken, but I can't kill his broken. So that's a major issue for me.
Where I see the balance personally coming into that, though, is that you are a huge problem for the rest of the team. So
Sure.
You are a one-man 3-person counter, and then you guys have 3 people to play with to take out Duxitum. That's how I see it anyway. And that's maybe from a bit of a grass is greener perspective too, where I mean you're tempted to look at yourself as having the bigger handicap in a fight. But dude, you are a scary person to go up against in any arena format.
And I think especially, it's not something that we've had to deal with for a little while, purely because of, certain kind of lucky factors, which is you are realistically capable of soloing a lot of teams, right? If you get a Drake glitch, you sit on that, you can realistically 1v3 a lot of teams.
In a straight fight, yes. I think they could take the flag.
Yeah, obviously, but once you get the flag, you force them to come to you. The reason we haven't had to deal with that, of course, is that we have, Auorodict and Branzel are very much so staples of our team, and we have the PV kick and then just the turn undead, which gives us, you don't even bother trying to bring out the Dracolich.
Right.
If we didn't have access to that, I think, then you're all of a sudden, it kind of swings that balance over.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I would agree, but I mean that's kind of why, at least from the Stars' perspective, Duxitum is the linchpin, because you're right. In theory, I could take on a good chunk of people, but I lose my Dracula because of Branzel, which knocks me down a good peg because it just means you could at least keep me stunned. And then there's the question of like who's going to carry our flag and who's going to kill Duxatum. Like Kim
that's a
Paz
good
is our
point from
flag
that
carrier.
perspective. When you're accustomed to, I guess, being a pretty significant power against all 4 people, I can definitely see how then Duxatum or Dzutum, I'm probably butchering his name, but whatever. You can see how he becomes a big focal point to you. Whereas, I mean, for us, he's a flex pick anyway because he doesn't work against everyone. Or, I mean, he could. I shouldn't say he doesn't. He certainly could work against everyone, but there's a lot of compositions we have available anyway.
I think what I was getting at a second ago is I think another issue with the stars is that I think it's like what you said before. We need to put in 3 people that could basically counter the person that I can't deal with. Again, down that vein that I'm invincible.
Well, I was saying you can, not that you should have to. But anyway.
But yes, we can. But the problem in this scenario is we can't. Because our only flag carrier is really Kim Paz, and Kim Paz can't do any damage to Duxatum either. So it creates this issue where we're really struggling with flex and killing him in general.
And I do think it's important to...
You need to figure out who you have that does do damage to DX, and that's going to be in the realm of your melee probably. If you can't put out somebody out there who can equip up a weapon that can get through that AMS, well, you're kind of hosed. You go too strong on the casting, and you just put yourself at a severe disadvantage.
I think that's a little bit Bodrum's point too. Is that at that point now they're down 2 picks already because Bodrum's kind of a given just because he's Bodrum, obviously, right? There's so many reasons to this. Kim Paz then is also a given as their main flag carrier. So now they've only got 2 roles left to look at how to counter a big beast like Zudum. So
right. And you'll remember that week 1, I think we had a really cool team in week 1. I don't know if it's going to win if we keep doing it. But like we went with no Azula, so we had no curative. So we were in there with Azur, and we were in there with Layden, so we can get rid of the disjunction, 2 other mages. And I think we all agree that match doesn't really count because we were all rusty as hell, and I completely agree with that. But, that shows, like, we would never not use Azula. We love Azula. Azula's, a druid. It's awesome. She plays perfectly. There's no reason we wouldn't use her, but we didn't, because it's just like we need an extra spot. We need to put in someone here who could do damage to an invoker, for example. It's just we didn't really know what else to do at the time.
And of course, the one issue is, even if you have ideas for something you think might work, it's hard to like force yourself to make that gamble in ACFL, because that's really the only time you get a chance to try it is in the actual match that really, really matters, right?
Right.
So it's hard to take those gambles and try and play around with the metagame a little bit, because it's such a big risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one nice thing about today is that, and me and Kim Paz have had this happen before to us in other seasons, and obviously the other guys too. But me and Kim Paz and Jason, we've always been really wanting to, get that perfect season, and we never have, so whatever. But whenever we get that one loss, we feel a little bit better because then we can actually start experimenting more without like the overarching fear.
Right, all that pressure is gone. Right now, all of a sudden, you just ultimately now you just want to be first place. You don't have that monkey on your back anymore.
But the nice thing is, like, we've already tried 2 different. Or 3, I guess really only 2. We tried the first week lineup and then this week's lineup against Brute Squad. We have other ideas. We have been scared to use them because we don't necessarily want to lose or something along those lines. But now it's like, we're not necessarily worried about you taking our first place spot. I know that's something you've mentioned a few times in your posts. But, we're like, if we can't beat the guy who's in 3rd place, then, what do we deserve anyways? Who cares if we get a bye? So we'd rather take a few losses and try and figure out a way to actually beat every team. There's a little bit of conflict over us having to play Hydra twice in a couple of weeks because we lost the win because of the little fluke from before. But I think like Kim Paz and I both agree that it's like, sure, it sucks that we lost a win. It's probably easier now that we already broke the perfect season. But it's like, well, this just means we get an extra game to practice,
Yeah.
And Hydra is in theory possibly going to make it to the playoffs. Maybe not because of Gallo Glass, but if they do, we want to be able to beat them.
Very scary today.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, should we give up the podium to Galaglass?
Yeah, I have to go to bed, so they should talk. They did great.
Okay, thank you for coming on, Bodrum. Always fun to talk to you, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Have a good night.
Okay, let's try and bring Puck on.
I might take that opportunity too, actually.
head off yourself?
Yeah. So I'll head off. Thanks a lot for having me on. It was fun.
All right, sure, man. And thank you all, as always, for everything you do for the team, man. I love having you around.
Hey, it's my pleasure. There's a lot of people on that team that do a lot of work. It's a really good team environment, I have to say. It's nice.
Have a good night.
Night.